And welcome back to Tech Tip Tuesday. Today is the Straining Your Paint episode. So, straining paint. I wish I could tell you that this is something that I've been doing for as long as I've been airbrushing. But honestly, I was in the camp of, why should I need to do that? I only deal with a few drops of paint in my airbrush at a time. The couple weeks ago, I ran into an issue with one of the brushes, and it was a pretty noticeable thing. If you go back to my YouTube channel and watch the Grex XGI fan cap video, you'll see that is more of a redemption video, because when I did that on a live feed, there was so much gunk and junk in the paint that I poured into that poor brush that the original video failed miserably. So it clogged up the brush and was horrible. So I strained the paint after that, was amazed at what came out of it, and then I asked myself, why am I not doing this for everything? I do all detail work, you know, and it just makes sense not to put any kind of contaminants in the brush, especially with the small stuff that will cause it to jam up the brush. And honestly, you know, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. When I started straining all my paint, it was remarkable. I was blown away. Again, I only used drops of paint at a time. You know, didn't think there was that many things that could go wrong in there, but there were. So today, I'm going to show you kind of what I came up with in the past couple of weeks to get that done. Really simple DIY stuff, and you know, it'll get you on the right path and get your paint clean. Before I go on with that, though, a quick addendum to last week's Tech Tip Tuesday. I knew I was going to have a hard time saying that. With the stencils, this is the pan that I used to clean out that stencil. And I didn't mention this at the end, but what I normally do is when I'm done with cleaning my stencils, I'll just let the rubbing alcohol evaporate. It evaporates quickly. It only takes about a day or two, and all you're left with is this dirty paint sludge. And what's really nice is this stuff basically is just rubbery nastiness. You get some window cleaner, spray this a couple times, and all this stuff comes off, and you're back to new. And then you can even let that paper towel dry out, and then you just throw it away. It's dried paint. So it's a really efficient way to do things, and it keeps the environment safe. You're not dumping, you know, rubbing alcohol down the sink with dirty paint in it. So cool way to go. I wanted to show you that. All right, let's get to it. Traditionally, when straining paint, you're going to find these paper disposable paint strainers. And the idea behind this is you just drop this in your spray gun cup, and then strain your paint right through it, and then your paint has clean strained paint ready to go. So these are great if you're working with larger quantities of material. These are generally found in automotive paint suppliers. This is actually a super cheap one. There are some pretty nice ones. So the problem for me is, again, I deal with drops of paint, so I never need, this is a waste of money for me to put 2 drops of paint through this and then throw this away. So I needed to come up with something different. So before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about mesh and the way that the strainer kind of open. When you start getting into looking for these strainers, basically there are a couple ways that they measure the type of opening that there is in this mesh. Some companies, or some ways you'll see, they'll actually give you the opening for this mesh, but more commonly what they'll do is they'll give you a micron count, or the biggest particle that will fit through this screen. So that's normally the way you'll see it. So if you see a micron rated screen or filter, it just shows you what size particle will not pass through, if that makes sense. So really easy. The smaller the number, the smaller the weave. So generally for the paint that I use, and most paint, is anywhere between 125 micron to 200 micron. And for you guys keeping track, because I did not know this, the symbol for micron is this. It's a little U with an extension on the bottom like that. So if you're looking for it and all you see is 200 and then that symbol, that's micron. That's what you're looking for. So okay, so where to get this. I'm going to put all the links in the descriptions below on where to get the screen in a second, but I'll show you what I was thinking. So I knew I had to do something. I started cutting these up, but again, it's a waste, because you're buying this whole thing, and all you're using is this little bit of screen at the bottom. And then I was just dropping paint through it to kind of get the paint to strain out, and again, that was inefficient, so I went to the hardware store, which is what I usually do. So what I ended up making were these tiny little screened PVC strainers. And the way that these work, these are just 1/2-inch slip joints. You can get these at any hardware store. I'll put the link in the description. Let me open up one that's brand new. So these are about $3, which is a bargain. It comes in 3 pieces basically. There's a gasket, there's this sleeve part, and then there's the actual part that the filter will go on. And you buy them it comes as a set just like this. Again, it's about $3.50 for this. And then what I did was I started with nylons, women's nylons, because this is a common DIY straining material. This has been used for a long time. It's interesting, it doesn't necessarily have a micron count, only because as you stretch it, you can open that up quite a bit. So it's difficult to get an accurate measurement on this, but it works for our type of paint, for just kind of getting the chunks out of the paint. This has been used for a long time. A common way to see this happen in airbrushing is a lot of times people will take just a regular nylon, stretch it over the cap of the paint bottle, and then screw the cap on. And so now basically when you open this up and pour out your paint, anything that's stuck in here is going to kind of get stuck in the nylon and won't come into your paint bottle. The only problem is with that is if paint gets stuck, which it does, it dries on the inside of this cap. You see it all in there? So anything that's in there is beyond the screen, so that stuff is going to get in your airbrush. So that was the only real drawback to this. I mean, it works and it's a quick and easy way to kind of get things done. So you know, that was one option. But this is what I started with because the material was readily available. And what I did for the first round was I just did the same thing. I took the sleeve, kind of put this over it. Oops, now I can't remember. Yeah, sorry. This way. Just kind of feed it all through. Like this. Straighten it out so it's in there now. And then I was able to put this back on, and now I have the strainer in there, and then I trim off all the extra, and then I had basically the same thing I have here. So again, this was great, but I wanted something a little bit more controllable. I work with Wicked colors, which are thin, but I also work with the candies, which are even thinner, and they require a smaller micron opening. So I wanted something that I could control a little bit. So I went online and looked around, and it's very easy to find strainer material, and it's not as expensive as you may think. So I'll put the link for where I found it. The company has been great. I placed one order, I immediately got it. They're affordable, just really cool stuff. The name of the company is Component Supply, and I'll put their link below. Well, what I did was you can buy mesh material for strainers, and that's what they make it for. They make it for everyone, the medical industry, and I'm sure paint suppliers buy it, and it's inexpensive. This is a 1/4 yard roll, which is more mesh than I'll use in a lifetime, and this is only about $12. To give you an idea, a brand new package of women's nylons well, yeah, I know because I just bought them, but normally I didn't know how much nylons were, but an average package of brand name women's nylons is $8. So it's not that much more to get the actual mesh. And the beauty of this site is when you go to their website, this is what they do. So they have every conceivable mesh count you could possibly imagine. So I just went with the 2 that were recommended by Createx, which was 125 micron and 200 micron. And so now I have this actual screen. So once I had the screen, all I did was cut off a strip, measure out my circle, and first time around I used scissors and just cut out the circle, and then I had a disc ready to go, a disc of that mesh material. I got tricky and went to the craft store and bought one of these hole punches. It's basically a 1/8 inch hole punch, but this isn't sharp enough to cut the mesh material. I was really hoping this was going to work because then I could just feed the material in and just punch out circles. But because the mesh is so strong, it actually gets stuck in the machine. So this didn't work, unfortunately. But I'll keep looking for a faster way to do this than to cut these out by hand. Basically, all I did was grabbed a circle template, one of my circle templates, and then I literally drew right on it the circle size and then cut it out by hand. Again, you know, it's not the most efficient way. It takes a little bit of time, but I, you know, cut a strip and gave me, you know, a bunch of these circles. Took about 10 minutes to do, and they're ready to go. And these strainers, the mesh lasts a long time too, so it's not like you have to do this every single time. Okay, so now that I had the circle, oops, let me grab that again. So now I have a circle of mesh that now fits in the same thing. Actually, I can do it either way. Use this. Let me do it this way. So drop the sleeve in there. Drop the mesh circle in there. So this I probably could have cut a little bit bigger, but originally originally this size was the only size for the hole punch, which is why I have it that size. But as long as it's bigger than the opening inside, you're going to be ready to rock and roll. So you just tighten this down like this and you're ready to go. So you have a perfect 150 micron strainer. And what I do from here is when I'm mixing paint, I'll use one of the older ones. So unfortunately, I can still tell I only have 2 mesh counts, and you can actually see the difference. This one obviously is used. So what I do now is, before I get ready to spray my airbrush paint, I grab a couple of mixing cups like this. Get you guys in a little closer. So I grab a couple mixing cups, grab the strainer. I try to keep it, this one has a label on it, so I've been trying to keep it right side up so the junk is always on one side, so I'm not flipping it upside down and now I have junk on both sides. I do rinse this out after I'm done with it, but it's just a safety precaution for me. You could use it either way, it doesn't really matter, but I would just get in the habit. So I take my strainer. These 1/2 inch slip joints fit right on these cups, which are really nice. So I'll get you down a little bit lower and tighter in so you can see what's going on here. Come on. There we go. Much better. Now you guys get to see the actual filtering. There we go. Okay. So normally this cup should be spotless, but it's not. But for this exercise, it's going to show you what I mean. So I have some white paint here. This is a base coat sealer white. Actually, do I want to use this? I don't want to use this, because I have the wrong screen for that. Oops. This is my pre-mixed umber color. So I'll put a few drops in here, and what happens is it immediately strains through, and now the paint that's in the bottom of this is ready to go. It's completely clean. And if I tilt this, clean this out just a little bit, tilt this just the right way. See up at the top, all those bits and pieces, those 4 bits, and there's a couple more in there. Now this paint was strained. When I put it into the mixing bottle, this was all strained. So that's stuff that's just drying inside the bottle and falling back in the bottle. And I guarantee you those little chunks of paint are big enough to screw up your detail airbrushing. On a bigger type of painting, those will just spit out and put a nasty black blob on your work. But if you're trying to get those super fine lines, all that garbage is going to collect on your airbrush. So now what is in here is completely strained and ready to go. I could put these drops right in. So that was the first one I came up with. But then I thought, you know what, that's great and everything, but I had to put 10 drops to get about 4 drops in, because there's material loss, because it gets, you know, stuck on the screen, and it actually kind of creeps underneath. And so there is about 50%, 40% paint loss with this device. So I'm like, okay, if I only need a drop of paint, what am I going to do here? That's, again, it's a waste of paint. So what I came up with was this guy. So this is just 2 pieces of, I think it's 3/16 maybe. Anyway, it's 2 pieces of PVC material. And what I did was I got a little hinge for the bottom of it. And I used a Dremel. First I drilled a hole through it, then I used a cone-shaped Dremel grinder and made a little funnel out of it. So these come apart, and I can use the same screen that I cut out for this. I just drop it in here, slap this shut, and now what I can do is with my airbrush, here we go. So what I can do is when I'm airbrushing, get the cap off of this, I can literally hold this over the cup. I'm not going to do this for real because I don't want to dirty this airbrush, but I can put like 1 or 2 drops of paint in there, and it'll filter it, strain it right into the cup, and it'll be ready to go. And this was, I can't even tell you, I had these scrap pieces of PVC. It's really nice that this is sign, they make signs out of this PVC. I just have some extra of it. But I'm sure there's other material that you could use if you can't come across PVC inexpensively. I was going to use wood, but a wood's absorbent, and I didn't know how that was going to work. But you certainly could, for the amount of paint you'll be using. And this is, it's not efficient. It's messy. You get paint creeping in there, but it does the job really, really well. So that is my inexpensive one drop at a time strainer. Now, of course, if you're using a bigger spray gun, zip you guys out again. Oops, I cannot zip you guys out again. You are out as far as you go. Sorry. If you use a spray gun, the new systems like the PPS system from 3M, they have strainers built in the cups, which are great. But again, this isn't going to help you on a smaller scale, but it basically validates and painters have been straining paint forever. It's just common knowledge. So this proves it in their development of this pretty awesome product here. So that is that. Now for bigger applications, say you don't want to invest in the whole strain system from 3M. You have the original metal cup from your spray gun. You can just, again, you can use this strainer, but they sell this slip joint in all different sizes. This is a 1.5 inch joint. So I did the same thing. I have a piece of nylon mesh that I just kind of wedged in there. And now if I have this, I can literally just put this on my spray cup, pour the paint in here, and I've got the same thing as that PPS system for, again, about $4. So this is just a really inexpensive way to do it. So again, and I use the same mesh that I bought from Component Supplies for this as well. So that's it. So you have a blast. I mean, there is 1,000,001 different slip joint type fittings, so you can pretty much make up exactly what you need, which is great. All right, so that is your paint straining episode for today. I hope you guys got some things out of it, whether you actually build these or come up with your own ideas. If you have anything to add, please do. I'm a newbie when it comes to straining paint, but I will never put unstrained paint in my airbrushes again. So please put your comments and your ideas in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're new, please hit that subscribe and bell icon, and come back for more fun and tips and tricks. I'm Steve Leahy, so this was Tips and Trick Tuesday. Hope you guys got something out of it. I love having you guys here. Thanks a lot, and I will catch you next time. Take care.